an LLC is like a separate entity, and so you create that, and then your real estate goes into that, and then if you have a liability causing event in an asset in the LLC, the only assets that are exposed are what's in that LLC.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ken Angst, Hope Properties MB, the Angst Real Estate Team. Hey, thanks for coming back to our weekly podcast. This week we have a special guest, Kevin Bertonneau. He's a lawyer in town. He's one of our preferred lawyers for trusts and as well as LLCs. And today on the first video, what we'd like to kind of talk about is the importance of having LLCs as part of your real estate portfolio when you have rentals. So, Kevin, if you can kind of tell us a little bit about your history, and then kind of go into depth, more detail on what is an LLC and how does it provide coverage.
Sure. First, my background, I grew up in Los Angeles, went to UCLA, then Loyola Marymount, but I grew up in a small business, but then I worked for law firms that defended major corporations in liability suits, including Sears and tractor manufacturers, John Deere, things like that. So a lot of high dollar liability cases, and where I got to see where things go wrong and how much it costs when it goes wrong. And so then as I moved up north into Lake Tahoe and then Reno, my practice now focuses on estate planning and then general business work. The general business work, a lot of that is setting up limited liability companies for, in particular, I have a lot of clients that have rental properties and often more than one.
Right.
The importance of that is an LLC is like a separate entity, and so you create that, and then your real estate goes into that, and then if you have a liability causing event in an asset in the LLC, the only assets that are exposed are what's in that LLC. So you might have other rental properties, you might have say your personal residence, you might have a ton of assets, stocks, everything else, but the only thing exposed is what's in that LLC, so they can't go after anything else. So it's important to have the LLC set up, the asset transferred into it. Of course, you also want to look at insurance and other things, but you set it up right and you follow the rules, which are not hard to follow.
Right.
You get that protection that you just can't get any other way.
Okay, so it's important because we have some rentals as part of our investments. Can you kind of go into if someone has a property right now? A lot of our clients have properties that are in their name, and then they're kind of worried about how it works out. I mean, obviously you set up the LLC, but what's the process to do it properly so that you can get it into the LLC so that's it's done correctly? So if there's a problem, then it's all done correctly.
Okay, well first there's a filing with the Secretary of State's office, which that itself is fairly easy, but then you should also have what's called an operating agreement, which is like the governing document for the LLC. The more of these steps you go through, the more likely you're going to have the protection. So then you create the LLC, then you obtain a new tax ID number from the IRS for that LLC.
Now it's called the EIN?
Correct, yeah, EIN, Employer Identification Number.
Okay.
And so then once you do that, then you do a deed that transfers it from you into your LLC. And so when all that's lined up, and then of course you pay your annual fees for the LLC, and then you also need to do a few other things. You need to have a bank account in the name of the LLC. Okay, that's good. You also, your lease, for example, would then need to be in the name of the LLC as the landlord, not you as an individual. Again, none of these are hard changes or whatever, especially if you see a lawyer that's done it and knows how to do it. It's a very, very quick process in Nevada. They're very, very landlord friendly, very investment friendly, more so than almost any other state. So they want you to do it, and Nevada is very well known for defending the integrity of LLCs.
Okay, that's important.
A lot of other states, they're okay, but hardly any are as strong as Nevada is.
Now, we've kind of talked about together over lunch before this, what are some of the pitfalls? Because I know that sometimes title insurance can be voided if you change in the LLC, or what if they have a mortgage? What do you do to make sure that sometimes it can be called due if you do the transfer? So what is the way to make sure that that's done correctly?
Okay, well, part of it depends. Technically, if you transfer a property into an LLC, that's considered a transfer. So most mortgages have a clause that says you can't transfer without our permission. I often tell clients, look, call your lender. A lot of times they want to keep, especially if it's a performing loan, just say, we're doing an LLC, it's my wife and I, there's nobody else involved, just like our trust where nobody else is involved. Normally they will say yes, as long as there's not somebody new being injected in there. They will usually say yes. So, and then you just notify the title company that you do it. Again, same thing, they don't want to lose the business.
Right.
I had one client who had a couple of properties, but in addition to that, he's a doctor and had a lot of other investments with the same bank, and he basically called and said, here's what I'm doing, you will let me, right? Because otherwise he said yes, that he would pull all of his loans from that bank, and they didn't want that.
Okay, great. So if you guys have any other questions about LLCs, he's one of the best ones in town that we use for asset protection for rentals. And then next week we'll kind of talk about the importance of having a trust. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks. Again, if you like our content, please subscribe. Until next time, you guys have a good week. Thanks.